of the XFL. Let's get into it. Okay, week 4 XFL preview coming at you guys. Let's talk about it. We've got some interesting things to go over. Broad strokes, there's been some roster shakeups, it kind of looks like. Some offensive line injuries for the Vipers. Seattle had a couple at their defensive line, I believe. New York interested to see who they're going to be starting at quarterback. And it looks like Quentin Flowers, for at least now, is out at Tampa. They're going to be starting Taylor Cornelius. So, very fun stuff happening this week. With February ending after this, I think after these games in my recap show, I'll probably do a best of the month, best top moments of the month. I might just make a little montage of that, maybe post it on Twitter. Who knows? Who knows? I'm keeping things open. The other thing I want to get to is I'm seeing all over the fucking internet, not all over, but on certain places, people just ragging on the XFL, and it fucking pisses me off. I'm about to start challenging dudes to straight up fights, and I don't need to be in this headspace right now. Garage season is not happening yet. I just can't be dealing with this shit. People talking about the weak quarterback play when the NFL has fuckers like Jameis Winston throwing 30 interceptions. It's got terrible quarterback play in it. I don't get it. It's football in the spring, and what more could you want with life? Just anyway, let's get into these games. Okay, game number 1 is going to be the LA Wildcats facing off against the New York Guardians. LA has been kind of on an upward trajectory while the Guardians have been down every week, just looking worse and worse. Like, I'm tired of ragging on the Guardians. They're just week 2 and 3, they just look terrible. They're not going to have Matt McGloin. I can only assume his rib injury seems a little bit more serious than anticipated. LA should at least have a strong advantage here in the quarterback category. I'm very interested to see who New York's going to start, whether it's going to be Williams or Luis Perez. I feel like it should be Perez. He showed a little bit of promise last week. He was pretty solid. They just kind of had him at the end there, so hard to tell, but he looked like the best quarterback option. LA's traveling all the way across the country, so I want to see if their momentum kind of travels with them. See if Josh Johnson keeps progressing. He seems to be, to me, either the second or third best quarterback in this league right now. The guy is looking studly. I want to see if Los Angeles' pass defense will regress to what it kind of was week 1 and 2, or if it'll kind of carry that momentum that they had against DC and New York. New York's offense kind of seems to be the cure for the common defense, so I don't really expect much of a regression here for Los Angeles, but it'll be something to keep an eye on. Speaking of stuff to keep an eye on and roster swap-ups, Nelson Spruce out of the game, out for the week for an injury. With Nelson Spruce out, it'll be very interesting to see how much LA spreads it out, or if he just or if Johnson kind of just finds another favorite to go to. That'll be something to watch. New York's passing defense against this LA offense as well will be something to keep an eye on. See if maybe it'll make LA want to run it a little bit more, looking at how bad the Guardians have been stopping the run. I also want to see how the Guardians' rush attack will fare against this LA defense. The Guardians seem to have some kind of momentum, at least a little bit near the end of the game last week against the Battlehawks. So I want to see if they kind of progress through that, or if they kind of just look bad again. My key things to look out for in the game are, I want to see how the Wildcats will do without Nelson Spruce. He's a pretty big factor to me. I want to see how the Guardians will just do in general on offense. I'm still fairly strong on their defense, but that offense is so bad it might kind of counter what anything their defense is doing. And I also want to see how close the game will be. It could be deceptively close with the travel LA is having to do, travel all the way across the country, and without the help of Nelson Spruce. This might be a closer game than some people think. I'm not sure, because I feel like Josh Johnson's just going to kind of tear him up. But it could be. Who knows? Next game up, we got the Seattle Dragons facing off against the St. Louis Battlehawks. My garage team. I think I'm claiming them as my garage team. I'm going to go with that. This one, I'm kind of keen on watching the progression of both quarterbacks. Brandon Silvers has had moments where he looks really, really good and moments where he looks really, really bad. While Jordan Ta'amu kind of looks fairly good, I would say. Like, fairly good to just straight up good throughout the season, just having some boneheaded mistakes. But the guy's young. These teams are also kind of searching for an identity still. Well, St. Louis has an identity. They want to run the ball. That Matt Jones, Ta'amu just going to keep pounding it. So I want to see how they kind of stack up offensively against Seattle's defense, Seattle's defense has been good. I will give them that. They've had a surprisingly good defense, especially up front. Their defensive front's been fairly solid. So maybe St. Louis just won't be able to run all over them, so that'll kind of maybe even out the playing field a little bit. Not sure. To me, Seattle goes as Brandon Silvers goes, and if he doesn't have a good day, then they are not going to have a good time. And I feel like St. Louis has the tools at their disposal, especially their defensive front, to kind of knock Brandon Silvers off of a rhythm and then kind of just take over the game from there. Expect this one to be a little bit more low scoring than even other XFL games, just because Seattle's offense kind of won't have very much production, and then St. Louis, with their run-first mindset, probably not going to score a whole bunch, and then I feel like Seattle can get enough stops to kind of keep themselves in the game a little bit, maybe only down 9 or like 2 scores, who knows. If you are a St. Louis fan, I would approach this game as kind of like the benchmark game. Seattle seems to be the benchmark team where if you lose to them, you're definitely not a good team, but if you can beat them, you're probably a good team. Like, you're probably in the top tier, well, top-ish tier of the XFL. They're like the straight middle of the pack. So if you beat Seattle, you're good. If you don't, you're bad. Seattle is average. They are the gatekeepers of the XFL, if you will. My 3 keys to watch for the game: Jordan Ta'amu needs to have a good game passing because I feel like Seattle will be able to shut down the run. Brandon Silvers needs to clean up those mistakes. If he can do that, they might win this game, let alone cover. But I don't really have a whole bunch of confidence that he will. And 3, this is probably going to be a defensive battle. Both these defenses are really good, and with the mistakes that Brandon Silvers makes and the kind of way that St. Louis wants to win, I would expect this to be a fairly close game throughout. Maybe St. Louis's defense can just stop them enough to kind of make it a low-scoring blowout, like 20-0 or something like that. But I expect this one to be fairly close. At least going into half, I expect it to be a close game. But it should be fun. I hope for really good ones. St. Louis had a blowout last week. I don't really want a blowout this week. Seattle's been in some really fun games, so I hope they can kind of keep this up. Let's make it a good one. Next up, we got the showdown in Texas. The hoedown in the Lowtown. It's the Houston Roughnecks facing off against the Dallas Renegades. This one will be exciting. I'm calling it right now. Game of the week of the season so far. In the red corner, you've got P.J. Walker, Cam Phillips, coached by June Jones, the number 1 team in the league. Houston Roughnecks, the offensive instability. In the blue corner, you've got the Dallas Renegades, building momentum. The face of the league with Bob Stoops and Landry Jones. The 1-2 punch of Lance Dunbar and Cameron Harris Payne. Yeah, it's the pay-per-view event of the year. Anyway, this one's going to be a blast, guys. Offense versus offense. Style versus style. Dallas is a team that wants to run first. Houston's a team that wants to go super vertical. This is going to be a blast. Then again, any game with Houston so far has been really fun to watch. They've been in a part of some really fun ones. Against St. Louis, their game last week against Tampa. Really, really fun games. My main things to look out for is how this Houston offensive line faces up against this Dallas defense, which to me is maybe one of the top 2 in the league. Tampa secretly is maybe really, really good. Dallas, I think, is a really, really good defense. And they're only helped, I believe, by the way they want their offense to play, which can be like a methodical sort of go down the field, short passes, run the ball. They've got 2 really good running backs, probably the best run game in the entire league, if I'm being honest. And if Landry Jones can kind of clean up some of his mistakes, like, they're super solid. They're kind of good, but not great, but no weaknesses. If Landry Jones can kind of fix his interception issues, that's like, this team's really good. For Houston, it'll kind of come down to me is if their defense can stop Dallas, or if not, if their offense can just win in a shootout. Really, though, it comes down to the defense, because in a shootout, I feel like Dallas might be able to compete with them just based on how Mummy and those style of offense he can concoct. Dallas's offense is going to just be able to score. Houston might be able to score faster, but I don't know. In a shootout, I like Houston just because they seem to have the better offense, but I feel like Dallas might be able to just stop them 1 or 2 or enough times just to kind of make it a game. This one is really close, and it should be really good. Very, very excited. Okay, rounding off the weekend, we got the Tampa Bay Vipers hosting the DC Defenders. And holy cow, these teams couldn't have really looked different last week. Tampa Bay actually looked good facing Houston, and DC looked terrible facing LA. I think Cardale might have been the worst-looking quarterback of the week last week. So this is kind of a which way are you going sort of game for both teams. For DC, it's the potential to be a bounce back because they're playing one of the bottom 2 teams in the league. For Tampa, if they can maybe carry the momentum they had last week into this one and beat DC, you're thinking of this whole team in a different light. I don't really trust Mark Trestman, though, because, man, the guy just doesn't use weapons. Why do you not just start Quentin Flowers? I don't get it. And now he's not even there for you. You got to start Corn Dog. I don't really see how this offense is going to be competitive against DC, who I expect to have a bounce back week. I think their defense will make a difference. I think their defense will recover from how terrible they were last week. And I think Cardale Jones will bounce back and kind of look, even if it doesn't look as good as he did weeks 1 and 2, just look half as good as that. And I feel like you can run away with it as DC here. Interesting to see how Tampa Bay will kind of game plan around not having Quentin Flowers, because they kind of slide him in for drives or a couple plays here and there to do some cool option play, things like that. Want to see if they change it up, because I don't feel like Cornelius, that doesn't play to his strengths. So you might have to change up the way you're attacking DC in this. For DC, I want to see if Pep Hamilton's going to just, him and the boys are just going to recover, kind of go on, just forget about last week and just get into it and take care of business. See if they have any more wrinkles. They seem to try and do at least one cool play every week. Didn't really work out for them last week, but maybe it will this time. Who knows? DC should be a fun watch. This game might be surprisingly close. I'm not sure, especially without Quentin Flowers in it all. I'm not sure how to rate this Tampa team, but their defense is good, and their offense has weapons, so who knows? I feel like DC has the edge, but based on how they looked last week, the only teams they've beaten are Seattle and New York, and those teams are kind of, They beat Seattle, so they're at least a good team, but who knows? My 3 things to watch out for in this game is I want to see how Cardale Jones would do, because he had such a bad week last week. If he can bounce back from that, then this team will be fine. They'll be good, but very interested to see how he's going to look this week. Is Tampa, at least now that Quentin Flowers is out, are they going to stick with a quarterback? Are they going to stick with Taylor Cornelius? Are they going to try and get Aaron Murray in? I don't know. Mark Trestman seems to be crazy sometimes about having the 2-quarterback system. I don't get it, but he seems to love it, so whatever there. And will this be a defensive battle? If Cardale Jones is looking like he did last week, this might be kind of a low-scoring defensive slugfest. And if that's the case, I really like Tampa in this spot. So if they can kind of knock Cardale off of any kind of rhythm and just get him throwing interceptions like crazy, then watch out for the Vipers in this. This game could be the deceptively close game. I'm going to say that. Deceptively close DC versus Tampa. Let's do it. Okay, so that covers basically a little bit of each game. So let's get into my predictions. So for the LA Wildcats versus the New York Guardians, I'm going to have the spreads all on Twitter. I'm just picking the straight-up winner on here. So LA's winning this. No matter who New York trots out there at quarterback, I just can't trust them. Their offense just looks so bad. They seem to be trending downwards every week, and I just don't get it. LA's winning this one, guys. Just for Seattle versus St. Louis, that's a little bit harder for me to pick, but I gotta go St. Louis. They're playing at St. Louis. That crowd's insane. They're playing in a garage. They're going to be pounding beers, hopefully before the game if they want to really win. Garage Boy secret. I feel like this will be close. Deceptively close. I'm going to use that again. But the Battlehawks will come away with it. Houston versus Dallas, the game of the week, of the century, of the year, of the season, of the league. Give me Houston. They have shown me nothing that warrants them not being the number one team. This offense and P.J. Walker and Cam Phillips, that duo, I feel can beat almost any team just single-handedly. Cam Phillips is the best wide receiver in the league, just flat. And finally, for Tampa Bay versus D.C., I'm going to go D.C., and I'll tell you why. Mark Trestman. That's the main reason. I can't trust him as a coach. I can't. I like Pep Hamilton way more. Mark Trestman just has made so many bonehead decisions. I just don't get it. I mean, they're sticking with Taylor Cornelius, so maybe he's better than Aaron Murray, but it's not saying much based on what he looked like week one. Give me DC. One word for every team going into week 4. Los Angeles, momentum. Carry the momentum of last week. You don't have Spruce. That's going to hurt, but you have a lot of guys that stepped up last week, so you can lean on them. Good for that. New York, flip it. Flip whatever you're doing on offense. I feel like maybe J.A. Manga should just do whatever the opposite of what he thinks. That might work. They just got to do something different. That's New York. Different. St. Louis Battlehawks, pass. Jordan Tomu has to be a better passer this week because I feel like the Dragons are going to be able to stop the run pretty effectively. So he needs to be a smarter passer. He needs to be a better pocket quarterback. Passing is the word of the week for the Battlehawks. Seattle, cleanliness. Brandon Silvers needs to clean. It's the same thing every week for Seattle. Brandon Silvers needs to clean up his play. If he can just not even play like his best moments all the time, just kind of eliminate the worst ones. They'd be so good if he could just fix what he's doing. That's all. Cleanliness. Houston, defense. That defense needs to kind of step up against Dallas. They need to get some stops. They need to be able to get to Landry Jones, kind of force him off, maybe throw a couple picks. Dallas, quarterback. Landry Jones just needs to tweak it a little bit, kind of clean up his interceptions, and kind of, you know what? Actually, scrap that. Dallas, balance. They need to kind of have a more balanced offense. They barely ran it in the first half last week, and I don't really get it because once they kind of turn on the burners, once they get those running backs heavily involved, they are a scary good team. So, balance for Dallas. DC defenders, forget. You got to forget last week like it never happened. You are the week 2 DC defenders with all the hype. People are saying you should be number 1 in the entire league. Cardale for MVP. Coming into the lowest ranked team in the entire league. You need to have that mentality if you were DC. Just forget last week even happened. Tampa, consistency. Just keep whatever happens, keep the corn dog in there. I don't care, Mark Trestman, if your little devil and angel on your shoulders are being like, put in your Murray, put in another quarterback. Don't do it. Stick with the one quarterback. You need some consistent play. Just do it for me. If you do that, I won't even call you the coward of the week. Maybe. You may, I don't know. But consistency for the Vipers, that's all they need. A couple other key points I wanted to hit on before I leave you guys for the games this weekend. Really interested to see if any of these players start giving extra effort once they start seeing the sort of money that comes in. Because if you notice, if you think about it numbers-wise, a team like Houston, the only undefeated team, those players are getting a hefty bonus compared to teams like Tampa, who haven't won a game. Because the winning team of each game gets $100,000 to split among all the players. So if your team's just losing all the time, I feel like that's got to be like extra incentive to kind of win your next game and maybe just, it's got to be frustrating though. but I think it's incentivizing. My final thought to leave with everyone is, why the fuck don't I have a media pass? I am a Garage League dues paying member. I started the whole thing. I have my own league. I'm embracing the XFL like it's my little baby, and I don't have a media pass. This is some BS, and I'm blaming big NFL. I'm blaming big football. They don't want the little guy to succeed. They don't want the garage boys to succeed of the world. And you know what? Fine. I don't need it. I can cover this league all on my own. I have the help of my Twitter bros and brodettes. They're amazing. I got the reporters like Connor Fulton. I got them that do have passes that help me out. So I don't need any of this crap. Anyway, guys. Week 4 XFL action is going to be coming at you. I'm going to have my picks on Twitter Friday. So be ready for it. Let's go. Welcome to the XFL.